So this might also be then a shorter lab, depending on how deep we want to go in it with the 6 of us. Let's go ahead and ask some questions. What do we want to find out? Kenny, what do you want to think about?
Just pros and cons between the two.
Let's make it that. Let's do pros and we're just going to do plus and minus, and then this will be digital. Try it this way. Plus and minus. Paper. And all right, so pros and cons, that's one thing. What else? Tim, what would you like?
I'm kind of similar. Last summer I converted this course packet to most of it anyway to Canvas pages. This is not a page-by-page packet. It's more of a set of resources that you can dip in and dip out of, and some of them are activities, some of them are informational. And I'm looking for ideas and to see whether what I did was okay, or what I can still improve too.
So you're looking for affirmation that you did the right thing.
There you go.
Okay. I'm going to put that down as conversion as a topic here. Topics go here now, and then the medium. Like, okay, why did you choose Pages versus something else?
Right.
Lauren, what would you like
That
to?
was my big question. Why do you choose digital versus paper?
Digital versus
Yeah,
paper.
when are you choosing digital versus paper?
But his question is, I've made the choice of digital over
Oh.
paper. Which digital medium
Which
do I
digital
go for?
medium? Okay, yeah, so that takes it to the next level after you've decided that you're.
But
doing
yeah,
digital
why?
versus
What are the pros and cons of the different ones?
Definitely.
Excellent, Mandy. Any thoughts or
Um,
things that you were wondering about?
I would say ability to remove. I don't know if that makes sense, but like the ability to withdraw. Like once you create a handout, digital handout, can you revoke privileges? How does that work? Or digital.
So the sharing and permissions.
The sharing and permissions. Yes, that's a good way of putting it.
Which is correlated with my primary issue on this, is just trying to figure out, okay, the digital is great, but are you digitizing and uploading a Microsoft Word file? Are you embedding it directly within a Canvas page? Or are you going to be storing it in a Word or maybe a Google Doc, and you're going to be storing it out in the Google Drive? And making sure this actually gets, for me, a lot of this issue is still in the realm of how to manage those external documents, like
Right.
how to gain access.
Are you talking about privacy a little bit as well?
Privacy, but yeah, just what is the best way to make files and folder spaces available to your students? And so,
Found it, Lauren. We just need somebody on there besides me, and then it automatically shows up.
oh, that's interesting.
Interesting.
If I'm all by myself, I can't chat with anyone. But if somebody else comes in there, then now all of a sudden there's an option.
Okay.
Okay, very good.
You're providing answers just.
I just saw her name pop up there, so it was like
It
this.
didn't pop up on mine.
Oh, you,
Did it though? No,
where'd you go?
I'm reloading because it's not popping up on mine to be able to chat. So I'll be in there again in a second. I just reloaded.
So
Sorry.
this was there, and I thought, oh, I don't know if Lauren wants her big picture there, so I just removed it, and then I was like, oh, that's where it is.
No.
It's new.
That's common.
Still has this.
Cliff, back to you, the medium, but anything else?
Well, yeah, I mean, other than just, how do you present those files and documents? Embeds versus showing a folder, letting students drop directly into a folder, gain access to your folder. Are you sure they're not going to have access to anything else, and just all that stuff?
So many options. How do
Yeah.
you decide?
Which I know that you've got a topic of Google Drive as
Right.
a topic, so I don't want to over hijack this, but that's the space I'm in trying to figure this out.
And I did read in the Canvas community there are actually people who are using the Microsoft
Oh, the OneDrive.
OneDrive, and I saw that, and it was like the first time that I saw it. Everyone else was always like, I will never use this. I tried it, but this one was like, we constantly, use OneDrive. And I was like, interesting. I've never seen anybody have success with that.
If it's a kind of a closed shop, they may not know anything else. So they may
Right.
put up
This is our option.
and they don't have what we do is like three platforms we can pick and choose from and compare.
AJ, any thoughts other than we're going to go through sort of the pros and cons, paper versus digital, talk a little bit about conversion, medium format, that sort of stuff, and then sharing permissions, other ideas, things that you're curious about?
Hi everyone. And I think that the pros and cons of each is probably the thing I'm most.
I think it'd be exciting, huh? Yeah. Margaret.
Yeah, I think this is a good discussion. As Cliff was talking, I was thinking about a course I'm taking now. It's online, so it's all Canvas. And there are so many broken links that you just want to give up because you can't get to what you're supposed to be doing. And then, if you block time to do the work, but you can't get to the resources, it's so frustrating. So then you have to reach out and get access or whatever. And then so much of what's posted in a digital format, obviously, is old. They're old videos. It's funny because in Canvas, it's this online experience, and you start out by introducing yourself virtually to your classmates and to the instructors. So last term, it was clear that the class participants were all non-traditional students with lots of experience. And the lectures were recorded, 3 or 4 years ago, and had no bearing on our level of expertise. And it was really absolutely pathetic that these digital resources were not updated to meet the needs of the students. So maybe that's a problem with digital resources, is that you must maintain them.
Well, and yet the same sort of thing can be said. I mean, how many paper handouts have we seen that are like, this is clearly the same one that the professor's been using for 20 years.
So
It
it's
hasn't made
probably
any
for more.
changes. And- Is it right? It's the blue ink smells funny. Right, the digital
You've been
machine.
sniffing that, but.
Got me through school.
So let's start off with paper, some pros and cons here. And one of the first ones that I'm gonna put down is, as a pro, is the tangibility, or what's a good word for that?
Tangibility.
No, tangibility.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Touchy feely.
But what's the
This is
what's the
a-
plus about
Easy
tangibility?
access, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to click through or anything. Here's this piece of paper, it's in your hand, now you have,
As long as the student is in.
yeah.
But,
Pros,
yeah.
pros,
but
pros.
this doesn't work.
Yeah.
Con, links don't work.
Links don't work, yeah.
Pros.
It's finite, right? It's a very finite resource. You can have like, check out this bibliography that I've attached there, but it's up to you to then go
Yep.
type up those things as a student, and who will do that?
Kind of negative also is printing out. If you had to
Like,
allow
yeah.
time to print, you have to be at a printer or.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
money,
Printing,
costs.
printing costs, which are a little bit more visible than
And
the
depending on
costs of
whether
digital.
you want to have, black and white versus color, that
Right.
makes it even more expensive.
Color,
It jogs my memory though.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's.
You
right.
know, like you look at something on the web, like a story or something like, oh, that looks interesting. I don't have time
Yeah,
to read it
there's-
now, and then you forget to go back to it. But if this is sitting on your desk, it's like, oh yeah, I went to that. Let me,
there's,
move with it further. So
there's
there's
a
something about
yeah,
the.
what is that? What is that?
so there's two things. So there's the memory of when you're touching something versus seeing something on a screen, the actual physical touching creates a memory. We have a lot of debates about this stuff. So the other thing is that also your brain is more likely to retain information from something that is printed because your eyes don't need to exert as much effort to see it as they do with backlit screens.
And even the dots is,
Yeah,
that's
and so
even better. But
so there's a lot of things. Yeah, it's a bunch of dots. I mean, it works the same way in print, but they kind of blend together, so you don't really see the dots. But screens, naturally your eyes have to do a lot more work in order to read them. So therefore, because your mental effort is being focused somewhat on the actual looking at something, it's less on the retention of something. So paper actually has a lot more retention than
And this is
digital.
why Amazon came up with their
That's why they're
ink screen
yeah,
that
they're-
is
yeah.
a lot easier
yeah.
to read.
So they're like white. What do they call them?
Paper
They're
white.
like paper white, stuff like that, where it's not backlit screens. It's also one of the reasons why every tablet that I have, I inverse the colors. And so whenever I'm reading like a book or any article or whatever, I always have a black light,
White
black
and dark.
with white text,
Mhm.
because it's actually easier for my eyes to read. So I'm able to retain more information.
There's also something about the tangibility. It engages, and you said this, it engages more senses, right? So it's not just a visual thing, it's a visual and kinesthetic.
It's actually activating two different types of senses instead
Right.
of a single sense.
And if you think about the old bookstores, you got the smell of rotten
Yeah.
paper as well. So you got three.
Read.
Or the old Ditto machines that had the right, like, okay, this is a fresh sheet. So there's that. So you get more of the senses going on
Yes, I
there.
remember that.
I've got a few pros.
Yes.
So, and these are kind of riffs off of what you were just mentioning. The one thing is like paper has infinite analog zoom, right? I'm assuming your eyes work. Also,
It's not infinite. There is a point in which the paper touches
well,
your face.
as I was doing that, it got blurry.
Not even from here to here, it can be incremental.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. There's a lot of
The other thing is, like when you've got your laptop, dual screens are awesome, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of times paper becomes my second screen. So
Oh, yeah.
it can become, a reference where I'm not going between tabs.
That's a good
I'm
point.
going-
You got multiple windows going on here all at the same
I
time
can be
on your
typing on
desktop.
the computer while
Yeah.
referencing this document.
yeah,
Um,
and without using
That's a
full
good
screen.
point.
And while they add the drawing with like Surface Pro, I mean, I've never encountered anyone using that where you like draw on the screen and you were just talking about this.
I've used it,
I know
but
so
it
much
doesn't
things.
have the same sort of, I mean, there's actually the same sort of thing, right? Like if you're writing on a digital copy, like using a tablet versus writing on like an actual physical copy, for some reason, like there's a slight difference in the way your hand is moving. And so there's also little bits of retention that are different between how you're writing on a tablet versus how you're writing on paper, because you're not thinking about how you have to write on a piece of paper. You just do it. It's natural. You've been trained to do it since you were like, 2 years old, probably. First time someone put a pen or a crayon in your hand. But when you're using a tablet, you cannot rest your hand on the tablet. So you kind of have to write in the air. And in doing so, again, more emphasis on how your hand is up in the air, less focus on what you're actually writing, and therefore you're not retaining as much information.
I have seen papers and research on the difference between writing,
Yep.
because it's a physical dance of your hand, versus the typing, which is not as meaningful because this is not the same as A or B.
Mhm.
They're all the same here. So there's something about muscle memory and connection, and I'm speaking outside of my.
No, it's true. It's absolutely true. It's actually really funny because there's a lot of things. There's a lot of studies from like older faculty members who had to handwrite or like have like lots more like typing even on the typewriter, where it's a lot more intentionality in how you're typing versus like the modern keyboard, which has that really quick response time. So you're just kind of you don't really think about it. And people who were like in the older generation that either was handwriting or using an old typewriter have a lot more retention in the stuff that they typed than people who were writing paper. So like students who actually entirely write their papers on the computer are less likely to remember that in a long period of time than somebody who typed it in a typewriter or hand wrote. It's very
These are about
interesting.
multisensory stuff. There's a great word processor called OhmWriter that does the key clicks. It gives you this very serene ambient sound in the background. So there's something there, but then it's also like ding, 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 ding. So instead of the clickety click, 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 or silence of the new keyboards, it's like raindrops falling from my fingertips with every different thing that I do. It's really quite nice.
That might be information. That might be like a little bit of sensory overload.
But
I wonder.
it's a positive feedback.
20
And
people
that's a
in the
thing that I think that the often keyboards don't give you.
Yeah.
Like there's positive feedback in how well I made that A, B, C, D, E, F, G. But on this, it's like
You
change
are
my
a
font.
good man.
Right.
Some of the
And now type this. And now write.
gaming keyboards, they have a lot more noise.
The mechanical keyboards. of
Yeah,
games,
they
yep,
because they want to
These
know
are
that they've made their
expensive
clip.
Gaming keyboards, and it's almost like they're from the
Retro.
1980s.
Well, it's like when you're playing on a video game controller, it makes
You've
lots of
only got-
clicks too.
you've
You
only
gotta
got-
have that.
I
You
have
only
no
got
idea
4
what that's
grenades. You gotta make sure you launch it. You don't want a question mark. I gotta feel the click that I've wasted one of my grenades before I try to launch it. Right, none of this namby-pamby. I'm not sure.
All right, so those are all sort of multi-sensory things. Any other?
I think it's sort of a both sides. It's right in the
Yeah,
middle.
that's fine. Thank you.
It's both a positive and a negative.
What is it?
Is the actual medium of paper, right? Easy to lose, so negative,
Mhm.
but also doesn't last forever. So therefore, eventually, if it goes out of date, it's not going to be around forever, sort of thing. Does that make sense?
Well,
It's
a
It's like-
file,
like
or is
publishing
a
and
file
making-
is.
Yeah. Once
Yeah.
you have
Once
yeah.
published,
Like
out there.
it's paper, it's less likely that it's gonna come back to bite you in the butt if you put some wrong information on it later. Does that make sense?
I don't know. Anything that George Washington typed in, his laptop is gone.
I mean, it's true. It's true.
And the papers are still around there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't really know how to
Has
describe
that
this
ancient
one.
technology.
I think it's positive, but just that idea where you can just kind of flick.
Yeah.
And you can't do it quite that quickly on a digital file.
It's funny when,
It's just not the.
Kindle.
I can't pick up exactly that many
Yeah,
pages because I have my little tabs. to-
It's
Yeah.
unique, though, right? There's a unique sense of it, and it's sort of written into our physical bodily memory experience, right? Like from the very early ages, for those of us of a certain age, we've had this. This was the first thing that parents gave us with crayons or whatever. I wonder if that's changing now,
Oh, yeah.
because and if that's not going to be, that sense of touch or whatever is not going to be the same. Thoughts?
When I open up this book, I'm not gonna see an email pop down here.
Yeah.
Distraction, focus.
Distraction. Yeah. It's a,
Nice, yeah.
I know this because I'm in a course where
Oh, that's a
I
positive.
that's a positive.
Oh, okay.
On the other hand,
Part of me, what I was thinking was, well, at least in digital books, you can put a note on there, or if multiples are collaborating on a digital
Yeah.
note. Oh, Bob thought
Lack
this was
of
really
collaboration.
important, so
So,
that's
no.
what I thought you were gonna have. Which I see what you mean with the
Yeah.
ping,
distraction.
ping, ping, distraction. No, somebody posted on
Absolutely.
Facebook. And yeah.
the other thing is just once it's paper, it's stuck. It's not going to
Static.
change. It's static.
Can't correct
It's-
that
it's-
typo that
yeah,
you only
it's
see
you-
after you
Once
put it
you
on
do
the
that, you're using whiteout, and well, is that a positive or a negative?
well, whiteout gives you that sensory thing again.
Yeah, that's true. It does smell, but I wonder if if it's also a negative that it's static. Because what if you're making a mistake, right? Therefore, it's a negative.
Or the fact that it's static and things are changing, so I have this piece of paper today. I can't tell you how many sheets I have that look similar to this, that are about rubrics, for example,
Yeah.
because there's been a bunch of these, right?
Yeah.
And so it's new until it's old, which is
Right.
kind of like the car you drive off the lot, right?
Mhm.
As soon as you walk out the door, something changed, and so this isn't.
Definitely negative. Space, size, volume.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's in your book there. It's awesome. But
I already regret having to plug it around.
Is this
Wait.
lighter now?
I mean, I've got both.
So I guess
that's
it
the
has,
problem.
right.
well,
So
And
now
this might have like
and your kid.
hundreds of those.
I was going
in
to say,
it, right?
yeah. Your kid.
Depending on how many classes you're taking.
I have the whole internet, right? I have the whole information super.
I mean,
highway
I
right
have a
there.
gigantic library in this that if I try to literally within my field of graduate studies, I have a library that's gigantic. And the book alone, the Hebrew Bible that I had to carry with me into graduate school until I bought this program was about, so if it's standing on its side so you guys can see it on the spine, right? It was about yay tall and it was about that thick and about that wide. It was bigger than most textbooks.
It had built-in wheels and a handle.
Yeah, exactly. But But like, imagine that is just one book. And if I were studying Hebrew Bible, I'd usually have that and a commentary and other things. And it's like all of that is on here, and it's that much longer.
All right.
Oh, we're just getting going on the paper.
Okay. Well.
We did not even have
the
it.
size, the searchability.
Searchability, yeah,
yeah.
lack of
Yeah.
searchability.
I just wanted to bring up one other positive
Okay.
that you reminded me of.
Yeah.
And you're all gonna have to help me with this, like how to. So I find that I have this overwhelming feeling of love for my kids when I have to like change their poopy diaper. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Can't help you with that. So.
I'd rather not have you with that been there, done it.
When you're talking about lugging that book around, like you are remembering that book.
Yeah. it's
You
true.
will not feel that same way about like that PDF.
Oh, that's sure, absolutely.
So I don't know what that's called.
Emotional attachment.
Emotional attachment, absolutely.
Yeah, there's something. The Riverside
Nostalgia.
Shakespeare was my Hebrew Bible, but it's that big, and I carried it around, and that was the only book that I could carry around, and then I could have 5 other books or that.
Yeah, so there's a nostalgia or emotional attachment that's a positive.
However, I'm gonna just to be difficult.
Of course.
Sanford and Sons. I watched that as a kid. I remember it. All the nostalgia comes back about it. That's not my kid's nostalgia. And if my kid has only had this, if our students have only had this, then they're not going to feel that about a book that they're just thinking about how it's breaking their back. So
Yeah.
I think that that's
Who are we
wrong.
talking
Like,
about?
if you think of artifacts that are handed down generation to generation, like this would be a non-meaningful artifact if I handed it down because it's dead and it's
Right.
lost all of everything. Maybe they'll say, "Wow, what was that?" That's sort of an interest, but there's nothing interesting about this.
Right.
Like without it being charged up, without a live access to the internet, things like that. This is just a brick, and it's not interesting at all. The old book, or if I had an old book on Sanford and Son or whatever, the rotting paper, the binding that's falling apart, and if I got something like that from my dad, this is the book that he grew up with. I'd be like, well, that's kind of neat. I'll keep that. I'll put that in my keeper thing.
yeah, in the box that sits in your attic and gets dusty until you have a child to pass it down to and say, "This was your great grandfather's."
So are we saying that the negative is the students' lack of paper use?
Well, let's redirect here to students.
Yeah, right?
So,
It's what the
do you guys have
students-
nostalgia for any handouts that you received in undergrad or high school or previous years? Books, yes.
Yes, absolutely.
But this is not about books. This is
I
about.
did go back through some of my Spanish notes and stuff that I took in college when I was, like getting rid of 20 years worth of my career. And there was a certain amount of, oh yeah, I remember that class. And, so it brought back the memory. The note itself wasn't it was more the memory that it triggered.
I would say that I would take it back and say that there is like course packs and things like that have really been nostalgic. So
Okay.
then those are paper handouts for a class.
Yep.
I mean, they're technically in replacement of books, but the same kind of
Right.
concept.
And I had 2 of the copier paper things after my doctoral work was done that have been in my basement for years until I went through and I said, I'm never going to revisit these worksheets or old papers or old readings that I did. Or if I am going to revisit it, it's online right now, so I don't need to have this paper copy that has my stupid scrawlings on it.
Okay, I have 2 more on the positive. I swear these are new. The fact that with students, I can, because I use these sometimes, the printout I can say like, I can see that they don't have it up.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, pull it out and let me point right here. So it's the pointing. Because I feel very uncomfortable pointing to screens that are not touch screens. But paper, I'm like, I could like point it through the table.
Well,
not really.
let me take this now
That's a good
and
point.
say, this is, spoiler alert, we're jumping ahead quite a bit here. I agree with you, but if you look on your activity sheet on right here, now I'm doing both. I'm pointing to the screen. I can see that you can either look into it, or I can see that you in fact don't have it out. You don't even have any of our handouts, AJ.
a.
You've got a napkin that had a cookie on it. Thanks. I'll take
And
it.
that cookie's gone, but you
Right.
remember it, you feel like attached and
Yes.
Better
Slightly
than a
nostalgic
digital
about
cookie.
the cookie. Yes, way better than a digital cookie.
I have
You
one
can
more
smell this cookie.
I have one more positive.
Okay.
Power outage, connectivity issue,
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah,
the paper persists.
That's right.
The permanence of it, yes.
It's not just about the permanence, it's also about the
Existence.
existence.
Yeah, it's a complete resource. It's not.
Once it's printed, it's there and you don't have to worry about also a negative, my dog ate it.
Oh, or I dropped it in the toilet, or, we're over here on the digital side now.
Slosh
Yeah.
your
All right,
coffee.
pros and cons.
The shareability of it.
The Wi-Fi went down, shareability, that's a big plus.
Shareability, it's a plus and also a negative because if you don't want to share.
Share, collaborate, and I think that from a learning perspective, the collaborative elements of digital for me that's enough. All of this permanent stuff, that's great. But in the act of learning, if you can have a conversation with somebody else about what you're learning, that's good. That's good. If you go back and revisit that conversation later on, 30 years from now, I don't really care, because it felt good. But if you can go back and revisit it, what you had collaborated on, and share it again with the people that you're no longer in the same room with, but you're online back in your respective residence hall rooms, there's a way to connect you again with the material and each other and your thoughts on it. That's super good.
I can update it, I can add video, I can add audio, I can add other supportive accessibility features.
Real-time updates,
And
the moment, the second that one.
For better or worse.
Media updates. Yeah, and the ability to, like even in Canvas, to be able to have this because it's in Canvas. If I want to make a change here, it's changed for everyone. I could have handed it out to you already, not digitally, and you already have it on your hard drive or have access to it. I make a change, boom, it's updated. That was cool too.
That was actually one of the very earliest denotations we were trying to bring out in the class, in the Canvas class, was about files, about when to bring a file into Canvas versus when to save it outside. And that if you bring it into Canvas, you are capturing a version of a document. It is, if this file has been uploaded, it is a snapshot in time. It won't change. Whereas if you have it stored externally, you can update it all as much as you want to, but then now you've got over the course of 6 semesters, wait, what version am I on and what did it say 3 years ago, but I don't remember because I've made all these changes. So the version control isn't an advantage where it just becomes a challenge. If you're doing it digitally, there's a way to track versions, but you gotta be very, very disciplined about it.
That makes sense. I was gonna say, the sort of positive is accessibility in the sense of disability accessibility.
The ability to search, to scan,
To scan,
to have it read to you by a
Yep.
computer voice or a variety of computer
adjust
voices.
colors in order to.
Adjust color, adjust size, adjust,
Yep.
all of these things. Highlight as it's being read to you.
Yep.
These are great things that you can't do in a book
You can-
or
Yet.
Analytical tools can be used once it's digital, whereas it can't. Not in the same place.
How many times been seen and viewed?
Oh,
and
yeah.
how many minutes a student has
Yeah.
stayed on a page.
So helping the instructors keep track of, did 40% of my class download this? I mean, we don't even know if they bought the book, right? But if we can track whether they've downloaded this or even accessed it, then that's, they're doing something for the class. That's good feedback for us.
I don't know how to explain this, but sequencing or timing is a little easier with digital. In other words, I'm just thinking about the activity sheets for active teaching lab or the videos online. I haven't needed to return to those yet, but you've made it so that any point in the future that I need to return to something, I know where it is, I know how to find it, and I can use it. So yeah, just in time, I like that.
Well, and wherever.
And yeah, wherever, and that
Like
way, oh, sorry.
With the digital or with the handout, I need to be able to keep track of this. I need to be able to not have it get smashed or destroyed in my backpack.
Yeah.
When it's online, it's right here on my computer. I can access it. If I don't have my computer, I've got a phone. I can access it. If I don't have my computer or my phone, but Cliff is willing to let me log into his browser, I can access it. So it's sort of safer until it's not, because anytime that it goes away, it's gone from all those devices unless I've saved a copy of it. Whereas, if this version is gone, maybe there's another one somewhere in the world, in the Library of Congress, whatever.
The UWM, for example.
Yeah.
They do these, right?
Yeah.
I'm also thinking in terms of relevancy though, like what I think as a teacher or instructor is relevant right now, a student might be like, not yet, or do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and
And
that's the
digital
just in
gives you-
time,
Yeah.
because we have traditionally given content at the beginning, and we're like, I don't know if you're ready for this or not. It doesn't matter, because on the schedule, you're ready for this because I'm ready for this. So here's the paper for today. Keep track of it, and then someday, maybe at the end of the semester or later on in the semester, you'll be like, oh, that's what that was for, and you want to go back and revisit it. But this way, it's there when you need it, and you can search for it and find it, which would be easier.
I think also just space is a positive. There's a lot more space. Like if we're talking like there's you can make a handout. You can make a digital thing, 20 pages, or you can like connect to it. It can go in both directions. Like it can be infinite and infinite, which means that you can do information overload.
Right. Clutter, noise,
Yeah.
just the opposite of what AJ was talking about. Like if I'm not ready for it and I've got, with our activity, 500 links to it,
Yep.
it becomes noise. So yeah, these worksheets are no longer just 2 pages now that they're online. They are 2 pages plus whatever we add to them now. So we still try to keep everything that we're talking about on the activity sheet that we hand out, but the digital version has this whole extra sheet. So in some ways it's extendable.
Yep.
Right? So this is, and it's
We're not limited to
malleable.
8.5 by 11.
What's that?
We're not limited to 8.5 by 11 anymore.
Right.
Yeah, true.
Malleable, extendable. Extendable.
Also, on a negative, introduction of distractions.
Right.
Pings.
Other digital noise.
Other digital noise. Yeah, that's the way to put it. There's also, again, we've already sort of mentioned it, but lack of memory with regard to digital focus.
So yes and no.
Yes.
In typing digital notes, less memory. In seeing a multimodal, in reading the digital text,
Reading a digital text, there is
Less.
Reading a dynamic text with sound and visual, not as much.
and interactive
And interactive.
things.
Yeah,
and
so if, I guess the way to put it would be, if you convert your paper or your paper handout into a digital handout and do nothing else,
as is,
as is.
Right.
Yeah, memory retention is down.
right.
Because memory is only in pairing multiple bits of activity, whether that be the turning of pages, whether that would be the, something else that creates a sensory beyond just reading.
So-
Moving with your eyes.
Feedback in digital formats, it's possible. If we just have, again, the text over there and it's static,
Mhm.
digitally static,
Yeah.
then no. But if we have some sort of knowledge checks built into it, we're moving from now you could have a handout with like, here are 3 questions to think about. You could do that, but you don't get the feedback on those questions. There's no way to really do that. In the digital format, you could have feedback to that because it's digital. It's a link to a interactive quiz or H5P or some sort of other interactive elements, so we get more of this media that we're talking about as an option.
One reason why so I teach high school students and we use Canvas and we do something called activity prompt. So when we our messaging around it with the students is, because we do a lot of creative projects, if we give you an activity prompt, we want you to turn something in.
Right.
So it's a prompt. And I was staunchly like, we gotta print it, because if we hand them something physically, then it's like, how could they not know that we did that? They lose it, they leave it on the desk, whatever. One thing that's cool about the digital, again, going to timing, but now it is actually sequencing. You can actually say, like, we're at this point in the course, this is when this thing matters. This is when that activity is due. It's also like you're stacking their papers in the right order, so you're like, do this assignment first, and it builds so that this next assignment.
There's that idea of
Reminders.
scaffolding and reminders.
Reminders, because you can actually, in digital content, particularly in Canvas, you can send out reminder emails. Hey, this is due tomorrow. Do this.
Yeah, and then it's right in front of them.
Yep.
Again, it's right.
So what does it look like to have the best of both worlds? What could that look like?
One comment, I was thinking about this earlier. I think you can compare them, but I think keeping both open as an option is really important.
Yeah.
I don't know if I need to expand on that, but
Well, this is what we do. I mean, this is the choice that we've made at the Active Teaching Lab, is see all of the above.
yeah.
Here's a paper one. Tangible, you can scroll on it if you don't have your device with you. We even have like little boxes for you to write stuff. We don't give you a lot of white space on these anymore because we fill them up so that we can just give you that one page and not like a big staple thing of 8 pages, which is what I think a good handout by itself requires is better if it gives the students a chance to interact with it. If it's just a passive document with none of these activity prompts built into it and space for them to do that, it's not that great of a handout. I think.
On the opposite side of things, for example, one of the handouts that I've provided, if you want to pull it up on there, is a handout that we created because we go into classes and we give like usually one-off lectures, or like we might go into class like 3 times to give lectures. We do.
Is this the visual aids handout?
Yeah, the visual aids handout. So what we do is we will go in, we'll give the presentation, and then this is a recap of it because we won't share our slides with them. We won't let them go back through and look at them. And the reason why is because we are always constantly updating our slides. And a handout like this, a majority of this information is going to stay the same.
Right.
We're not really going to change. Like the aesthetic, what is design is contrast, repetition, alignment, proximity. We are always going to be teaching that. The stuff that's in there, we might tweak the wording a little bit, but none of this changes. Yep. CRAP spells design.
Some crap you need to remember here.
Design crap. Oh, well, did you see what the other ones are? CAT, conceptual aesthetic, and if you go to the next page.
Cat.
So we talk about cat prep.
Oh, technical. Yeah.
But the thing is that this is a passive document because all it is a recap of everything that we've already done. And we do an activity in class and we do all of this stuff. And now we're pairing this particular one with a pre-activity that I didn't send you because we weren't done with it yet when I emailed it to you. But it's a Pressbooks activity where they're going through and they're like, before you come to the class, let's test your knowledge and see what you think. And now let's actually teach you this stuff and then see how it comes out.
Do you really call it cat crap? Do you refer to it?
Yes,
That's
absolutely.
a
I
great
think that's
mnemonic.
awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, people
Absolutely.
will remember. I'll remember cat crap.
we narrowed down our design principles to 4 so that we can have crap.
Remember as well as a bag of poopy diapers. Thanks, AJ.
Students really get a kick out of the crap. They love seeing it. But yeah, there's no interactiveness to this. And we still provide it digitally as well as we print it sometimes, depending on the class itself. But the whole point is it's literally just to recap everything so that if they didn't take good notes, they still have something in front of them. There's no interactiveness to
And I
this.
saw a couple of, speaking of presentations, I saw several articles. I didn't add them to the activity sheet, but there were several articles out there about professional presenters who, when asked for a set of their slides, they say, no, I'm not going to share you those slides because they would be meaningless without with
And
me
we-
up here talking through them.
Right.
Yeah, and on that same level, like, right, we highly use the notes field.
Right.
And we do a lot of internal notes, and we don't want people reading those. And so the only way to do that would be to like export it as a PDF, and in which case then you have lost all of the notes, and you're just looking at this going, wait, what was the point for this particular slide? So unless you like or want to create a separate document in which you're annotating your slides, that becomes another issue too.
And
So
that was the thing that they said that this is what I will do instead.
Yeah.
I will have a separate set of slides that I use. It's my presenter notes. It's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
if there are a set of 3 slides that build together, they combine them into one slide that has multiple
yeah,
information
absolutely.
in it.
Yeah.
So, and it helps them because it gives them that same information that they've just presented in a different format. So they're like, this is what it would look like, sort of the,
But for
easier
us
version of it.
particularly also is that we have multiple people creating multiple different slideshows, and once one person creates it and then somebody else goes in and changes it, whose intellectual property is that? And it's a collaborative work, and that becomes a massive issue. And technically, is it Design Lab's intellectual property, or is it the person who's presenting it? And we get into that situation. So for us, that's why we went with handouts as opposed to sharing slides and digital other
it's
things.
It's Worf's, it's not yours.
Yeah.
It doesn't belong to
It doesn't
Or
belong
Design
to
Lab,
it doesn't
it's
belong to anybody. It's
universities.
it's the universities. I mean, in general, absolutely, and that would be like the official like thing. But then also, once you put those slides out there, somebody else can take them and
Right.
use them. And for us in particular, right, our big thing is design. So if we're sending out stuff to people and they take it and then they reuse it and they don't do good design and our stuff is on there,
Still,
all of a sudden we're getting negative. Like it looks negative on us. So that's another reason why we don't.
we're veering into a different topic.
Yeah, absolutely,
There's the open
but-
source and
No.
Creative Commons and such, but
But there's there's a level of like shareability.
that
that's an issue, right?
shareability, so yeah, there's a negative side to that
There's a negative
shareability
side
as
to
well.
shareability.
And you
which is-
pointed it to it here, they compose, like they go,
Yeah.
I should say compost.
Yeah,
Composts. not
yeah,
compose.
they like
Decomposes.
eventually this handout is gonna disappear. It's gonna go away, and
Both the digital version of it, I mean,
Yep.
probably, some big electronic spike or whatever, and
Yeah.
we'll lose the server, or it'll be stuck in like the floppy disk format, and people are like, I don't know what's on here, throw it away. Who
Sure.
knows?
I mean, it could happen.
So what? Slide handouts. Have any of you seen slide handouts? Where instead of taking notes as a professor, I will say, here are the slides I'm going through. Here's a picture of the slide. Here's 4 lines for you to write what that slide meant. You compose your own speaker notes based on the slides as a way to jog your memory. Usually that's paper form, right?
Almost always.
Versus if it were in Canvas and the whole thing were embedded. I've seen a few examples where they've taken the slides and broken them down into a couple of sections with interactive, like, what did you learn from those first 3 slides or whatever, and now let's look at the next 3 slides as a way to sort of force that. Thoughts on types of interactions? How do we keep people engaged with, and ostensibly these are what handouts are for, right? Especially in class. They're how to keep students following along when we're going all over the place. They at least have some sort of a roadmap here that is supposed to shape their learning. And in some ways it shapes our teaching because, I've got to get through this handout, or I've got to get through these slides, or AJ has a thing, and then I see some
Yeah,
skepticism on Maddie's face.
You reminded me, we used to do this, but we haven't been, and I'm trying to track why we haven't, but we used to have our students, when we would do something that's slide heavy, have them all bring up the slide on their own computers.
Okay.
That way, if I go ahead like 3 slides and they're like, wait, what were we talking about? They can just like click back. And that seemed to be a pretty cool thing for them. Like they could control what slide they're on at the same time I'm controlling what slide I'm on.
Or go back because they hadn't quite digested it,
Or
or
missed a word, or
Yeah.
they thought you said this, but I must have misread it, so I can control that.
now the danger of that is what I would always do with handouts is I would always skip ahead and be bored with what's going on up there.
Right.
And then eventually I'd look up and they'd be saying something and I was like, wait, what? And then I'd have to go back and try to figure out where that is. So there's a level of control if it's only digital and it's only controlled by you versus.
That'd be a cool feature for Google Slides to like only unlock the slide like
As-
so far that you're on.
Yeah, but only when I, the instructor, gets to it.
Yeah. Like
Isn't that something
unbury it.
that is available in one of those online like classroom ones?
I mean,
Probably, like you could have your Google Slides and present it in Blackboard Collaborate or
Yeah,
whatever.
no, I'm
where-
thinking like, isn't there like in something like Blackboard Collaborate where the students can have control and it's not Blackboard Collaborate, I know it's not. But
I know
it's
there's
one.
there's a way that you can freeze their screen
Yeah.
so that they have to follow along with you.
Mhm.
But then that's a complete one end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
You can then unlock their screen so that they can go wherever they want to in the presentation. But there's no way to, at least I'm not aware of any way to play that game of, you can only go backwards and forwards to where we've hit without going all the way through it. But it's been a while, then who knows?
AJ, have you guys tried the Google Slides Q&A where they can use
Very
the?
minimally.
Okay.
I mean, our classes are small enough that it just we're
You
interested
can
because
just-
it's a cool feature.
And you've got a cohort that
They're
knows
well
each
thought
other
out.
pretty well.
Yeah.
And so they're not necessarily afraid to be like, wait a second.
Exactly.
I've tried to use that in presentations with minimal success because it's really hard to be paying attention to that and paying attention to the presentations going out to the majority.
Oh, wonderful point of discussion. Let's talk about, with a digital sheet, how much are you adding to the digital noise in that handout where they are going to click off on their own direction or whatever? And is it good or bad? Like if you have a student who's so interested or so moved to go dig deeper into the topic that you're exploring that they go off on their own little rabbit hole hunt instead of listening to you, is that necessarily a bad thing, or does that just show that they've got the, wow, this is great because they're interested enough to do it on their own instead of shoe shopping or
It's good until they come back and,
say, wait a second, what?
yeah, exactly. They're totally like behind by 3 slides, right? And then they don't really know where you are.
I see that as like a danger in general. Is like whenever I was like lecturing, I hated when my students had a computer out in front of them because I could just see them lose focus and then come back and lose focus and come back. And it was like you could like literally, if you knew the presentation well enough to not actually ever look at the slides and just watch as you're going, you would just see students that would lose their focus. And it might be 5 minutes, it might be 20 minutes, and then come back. And so for me, and like that's like sort of the danger in our world right now is that their attention spans are so low to begin with that doing something like a lecture where you're working through a handout, they're still going to lose their focus. And the question is this even a conversation we should be having about this, or should we not just be talking about how we can incorporate activities and things to keep their focus every 10 minutes? You know, like it does like having a slideshow where they are able to work off of it so that you're lecturing on stuff, does that even work? Or should it be a bunch of mini short lectures with something in between?
And this is what they say, right? They say 7 to 10 minutes and then have an activity. Like let's then throw up a clicker question where they are being assessed for how well they've been paying attention for the last 7 to 10
Yeah,
minutes.
absolutely.
And yeah.
So then the question is, do you need this in order to have your clicker question or your activity, your interactivity, or can that be digital and you don't really?
Do you need
We
anything
don't-
at all?
Yeah, like we don't even hand out the paper until the end. We don't want them to look
So
ahead.
a review.
Yeah, it's a review.
rather than
Because,
the guide.
and I think it's also the functionality of what you're trying to do with the handout. Are you trying to get them to interact throughout, or are you trying to recap the information? Because if you're just recapping information, then there's no point in giving it to them early, because all you're gonna do is create another distraction from their focus.
I mean, to me, this raises questions too about your overall teaching philosophy, right?
Right,
Because like every course that I teach is basically inspiration. Like I just want students to know what graphic design is, and then where they go with it, I don't know. And I mean, not that I don't care, but it doesn't pertain to the course.
Yeah.
So the idea of them going off into their own worlds, like that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah.
You know?
For you, that's a plus.
For
Yeah.
me, that's a plus.
If they have to study for certification on or whatever, I don't want them exploring stuff. I want them memorizing the things that I've looked at and said, this is going to be on the test, this is going to be on the test, this is not going to be on the test.
Yeah,
Pay attention throughout.
and on that same sort of vein for us, like, right, when we go into a class, we don't have any stakes on their grades.
True.
Like legitimately, we have, like, if they don't listen to us, it's on them, and we have no like real input in any bit of their project at that point. So like there's a little bit more for us. Like I think we have some stakes in the sense of like we want instructors to feel like what we're doing is meaningful, and so we have different kinds of stakes in how we want to present the information. I think that's a big difference too.
Let's talk about conversion and the format and things like that. And maybe this is going to be too in the weeds. Are we talking about why would you choose to put, this is not meant as an accusatory sort of, why would you do this? But why did you choose Canvas pages versus a Google Doc, or like what form is the content best in?
So for this, to go back to that original, actually, every instructor still has one of these, so they don't have to use any of the Canvas pages at all.
Okay.
The content is actually spread between Canvas pages, Google Docs, if collaboration is required. We use box folders to give them readings that they need to do for particular projects, so that can always be updated. So those are really just PDFs and Word documents that are downloaded and usually printed, actually. So yeah, all and in conversion, instead of just putting the words into a page and leaving it, it was breaking it up, putting some video in there where possible, putting some extra links for extra help where possible. Not every time, but
So changing it from a text-only document into a little bit more of an interactive,
and adding
or at least building on that. And it was your first time moving it over there, so it's a reasonable evolution.
and it's been an iterative change too.
Right.
To make it better as I get feedback from students and from other instructors about how to use it. So yeah, not just here's a PDF of the packet. It's more of here's accessible text and some activities around that can help you maybe access it a little better in the digital realm if we're not using this.
We frequently had faculty ask, at least when I'd be presenting pages, they often did not understand why would I ever want to use a page. And
Yeah.
it took a while to get to that point because they would often think, I've got a Word document. Why don't I just link to this Word document and use that? And then, so the primary justification for going to pages was if you can get it over to pages, it's responsive. It's a responsive design thing. So as you use different platforms, different handheld devices, it automatically does its thing to repaginate. Whereas if it's a fixed PDF, it's you gotta zoom in to where you can see it and slide the document left and right to be able to read it. And
So the accessibility, the flexibility, and we talked a little bit about that being a positive here, but this is another way that I didn't initially think of, but you're right.
Yeah.
In Canvas, if it's in an HTML sort of flexible thing versus a digital PDF or a digital Word document where it's sort of static for that 8.5 by 11 page, it can resize for your phone, for your tablet, for your large screen monitor because you need to zoom it up so that because your eyes are going bad, that infinite zoom that we're talking about. There's something in that, and in Canvas, it's good enough. It doesn't do all of the HTML stuff. It strips a lot of it out, but it can be taken out of that and put into a different HTML thing without a lot of loss of format. Pressbooks, for example.
And part of the drawback then of that migration is that not all Microsoft Word formatting translates over to HTML cleanly. So if you try to create a copy paste, it is a beast of HTML.
I usually rip out the formatting before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either that or just
Paste
copy
as
it
text.
straight into the HTML editor, so then it strips all of that.
Right.
Yeah.
The,
Just puts
the
it
rich
into
text,
text.
format.
So if you copy it from Word and put it straight into the HTML editor without trying to put it into the rich text editor,
Oh,
it strips all of it and just puts it in as
That's
the text.
When does it add the tags though then? Does it when you switch back to rich?
It must be
No.
at some point when it
If you-
washes left.
if you do that, you lose all the form. You lose the bold and
Yep,
stuff,
you will
right?
lose all bits of formatting and it'll go to just basic text.
Oh,
That's the price worth paying.
Yeah, so that's the price that you pay that you will,
I was happy
when
to
you're,
pay that
yeah,
price.
so
yeah.
it's actually a lot easier to copy it into the HTML editor, lose all of that and then go back in and add what you need to,
And to try to
than to
strip
try
out those
to
weird.
copy it in and then go into the back of the HTML and go, what in the world is this?
Yeah.
That's funny. I didn't know it would do that. I would always wash it through a text file. I
Yeah.
just into a text file and copy.
Well, there's also the X format, remove formatting thing.
Yeah.
That works as well, I
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah,
Hey,
just
we
highlight it all.
Are there, all right, so sharing in permissions, this is actually one of the things that I love about the Google Docs is that if I have a sign-up sheet that's digital, I can have them all edited. If I have a syllabus and I want their feedback on it, like, I didn't understand this assignment, I can say, you can have commenting privileges and I will know exactly what assignment, what page and what line that they are talking about here. Versus I didn't understand the assignment, and I'm like, what part did you not understand? Or I can just say view only and not give them any opportunity to work on it. Or I can have them make their own copy of it, and then it downloads to their device and they can do anything they want with it. We are out of time. Thank you for coming. Please hit a few check boxes. If you have any ideas for labs, such as Creative Commons or scaffolding, add them to the bottom of this sheet. Right, excellent. And let us know. And thank you again for coming.
Thank you.
Grab some cookies for your design lab team.
I will.
All right. Tomorrow we're talking about engaging students. So they come to your class, they don't want to be in your class. What's your responsibility? How much can you do? Should you do anything? Is it up to them? We'll have a discussion about that tomorrow. Bring a friend. And I apologize. I have to go help a friend speaking up, so I'm going to zip out of here. Thank you.
Same thing, leave the room as is. Like
Yes,
stuff's
leave the room as is. We'll
thrown out.
just use stuff tomorrow. And Margaret, the only thing that we have to, oh, she got still here? I think the only thing that we have to bring up is this. Yeah. Thank you.